Hello from the UAE at Fastex's Harmony 6. My name is Jeff Wilser. I am delighted to be joined today by Vardan Khachatryan, Chief Legal Officer of Fastex. Vardan, great chatting with you.
Likewise.
Obviously, so much of your world is all about regulation. Talk a bit about why regulatory clarity is so important to you and the broader Web3 ecosystem, especially right now in this moment.
So since crypto industry is quite innovative and it's global, it's not like traditional finance that is based in one jurisdiction. It's working globally. Your reach is much larger since you're working through the internet, and the internet is everywhere now.
Everywhere, yeah.
You have a lot of challenges with this because states have their approaches to this technology.
Yep.
And they vary quite significantly.
Each state, each nation,
each nation,
it gets very complicated very quickly.
And sometimes some are quite ahead of like giving clarity and
like
understanding how this works.
Just kidding.
And some are like quite behind.
Yeah.
And to operate globally, it's a bit challenging for the, VASPs.
And Fastex obviously has global ambitions.
Yes.
The goal is to operate everywhere,
Yes.
which I guess to your point means the more regions that get clarity, the better
it is for the industry overall.
Yes.
Because you have more understanding of what is required and what do they expect, the regulators and the states, and how to address them. And when you have like the nations or the regulators do not have understanding of it, let's say from the basic things, right? It creates challenges because you don't know how you will be treated tomorrow.
Right.
And that can have like an impact on your operations, especially when we are talking about like larger nations where you have a lot of customers, and it's not like from the business perspective, it's not like that easy to just shut off your
I guess
operations.
It makes it difficult to even figure out, like if I'm in charge of a sprawling operation that needs to figure out where to deploy capital, resources.
Exactly.
You can't make those choices if you don't even know where you'll be able to operate.
Like in any business.
Sure.
When you are not, like things are not expectable, predictable for the business, right? You do not put your money in this kind of gambles,
I'm so glad that you kind of spelled it out, because I think people hear things like, oh, regulation matters, and it's like an abstract concept. They don't really think through the impact of businesses and how without clarity, it's hard to make choices and therefore hard to grow. Given that, I know also you're globetrotting. I feel like every week I see you give a speech to different conferences in Malta and Dubai, in the US. What would you say are the most important trends you're seeing in regulation right now? What's shifting as we speak?
Yeah. No, what's shifting is that the following happens. I always differentiate the levels of regulations existing globally. The first level is no regulation in many states.
Yeah.
Still, including United States, including let's say some Asian countries, some Latin American countries, which is changing. And there is the second layer, level, which is AML regulation only, which requires you to have KYC, KYT, this sort of things.
Okay.
And the third level is already comprehensive regulations. Let's say MiCA.
MiCA, right.
Yeah. MiCA, VARA, Hong Kong's SFC regulations, Singapore regulations, right? It's more of a comprehensive regulations because or BIT license, New York. And these requirements are quite comprehensive. It touches a lot of the things, important things. What I see as a trend for the next year or the coming years is more nations are going to adopt comprehensive regulatory frameworks.
They're kind of going to have to, or else they fall behind, right?
Yes.
I would think it's in the nation's self-interest
Yeah.
to create regulations to stay relevant. Otherwise,
Exactly.
you lose the business, and that's self-defeating.
Yeah, and on the other hand, when we talk about like comprehensive regulatory framework, it doesn't mean that it covers every activity related to crypto. A lot of things are just, out of the scope for reasons. Let's say DeFi.
Yep.
Because regulators acknowledge themselves that they do not have enough knowledge and understanding to regulate it properly.
Right.
So that's another trend that I see, that they will start understanding it better and regulating it.
Interesting. Vardan, I'm glad you mentioned MiCA. Obviously, you've spoken a lot about MiCA in the past. I think you're the perfect person to chime in on this. How are you seeing that play out so far? What is the impacts of MiCA, and how do you imagine that will continue to evolve over time?
Yeah. So European Union is one of the biggest economies in the world. It means that the regulatory framework there, which is new and not tested, is going to be quite groundbreaking for the whole industry.
We'll all be learning.
It's going to be impacting everyone almost in the industry, right? But it's, as I said, it's not tested. It's new. It's not a regulation of one country.
Right.
It's regulation of all union and member states. There are 27 regulators in the European Union.
So it's easy to see where things can get tricky and complicated. There's different ways of maybe interpreting certain parts of MiCA. Maybe some nations are more permissive. Some are more strict.
Exactly.
So I could see there being a little gray area that gets complicated.
Well, the whole idea of MiCA was to have like harmonized regulatory framework through the union, right? But on the other hand, every law needs to be interpreted.
Right.
And if you have 27 regulators,
right? It's, most law has some gray area.
And if you have 27 regulators, you have 27 interpreters.
Right.
And but I have to mention, MiCA is a huge step forward.
Yes.
That's great. But there are also some challenges that we will, of course, see. Challenges in terms of readiness, like some nations are far ahead than others.
Yeah.
Some are quite crypto friendly and understanding, and some have no idea what's going on in the industry. So challenges we will see, and it's also not really tested regulatory framework. So.
I'm so curious. It's a great point. I'm wondering, do you have a sense timeline-wise of when we'll have a temperature of how is this going? Is it something you think we'll see immediately, or is it might take 6 months or a year or so for the dust to settle?
Look, MiCA gets enforced from December 30, 2024.
Right.
So in a couple of days, let's say. But member states have timelines and deadlines when they are grandfathering the existing licenses. The longest one is 18 months from December 30, which is a long time. So I think to see like how everything played out, we need at least, I think, 2 years.
So for one reason I asked that is it's easy in Web3, really any industry, for people to jump to conclusions too quickly, for narratives to shape, for media to write a headline or two. So I guess it's important for viewers at home. It's important to let's all take a breath and have some patience here.
You know what? Like there is this trend in crypto industry about everything, not just regulatory, like regulation and stuff. Like people get too excited too quick.
Yes.
And then sometimes they realize that they shouldn't have been that excited. Let's say US, right? Now, Trump's...
I was just going to go there. So for so long, the US has been considered at the very back of the bus, so to speak, with regulation. What is your sense now of the chances for regulatory clarity? How are you viewing the US in light of November election?
Like most of the people in crypto industry, I'm also like trying to be optimistic. But on the other hand, I also know that, okay, there will be clarity. There will not be like probably regulation through enforcement like SEC was doing during the Gensler times.
Right.
But it's not going to be like all fun and games walking into the, into the park situation. It's going to be like there is still going to be strict requirements, I believe.
Okay.
That VASP needs to like adhere while serving U.S. users and customers, U.S. people, and I think states. It's not just going to be on the federal level, of course. We should always remember that states are they have their own legislation, their own requirements, and states are not going to leave this to the federal level because they have their interest in this.
Right.
Not just from the consumer protection perspective, but just also taxing them, the players, right? Because they cannot get rid of this major source of revenue. So
it's in their interest to do it right, to your point.
Yeah.
Yes. So Vardan, last question for you, and I have good news for you. Someone just gave you a magic wand, and you have the power to create whatever regulation you want for the globe, for Fastex. What are a couple of key things that you will impose when you wave your powerful wands? Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. So I think like this is everybody's dream in crypto industry from the compliance and regulatory side, that to have one regulation for the globe. Since I said it's a global thing, right? Crypto. So we don't have to go and comply in each and every state.
That's a lawyer answer saying we can't do it globally.
You just have one, because I have a magic wand. I can do anything, which I'm doing something that is impossible for sure in this real life.
Fair.
But if it was ever possible, which is not, I would have like global regulatory framework regulation that just covers almost everything that needs to be covered. Let's say it doesn't cover fully decentralized activities, since it should be decentralized.
I mean, by definition, that's a tough one to regulate.
Exactly.
Yes.
But like the real decentralized protocols, let's say, or DeFi's, not those that are calling themselves decentralized because they are on blockchain.
A DeFi code of paint over a centralized entity.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay, well, that was an excellent lawyer, non-answer answer. I respect that, sir. But all kidding aside, Vardan, you are always a source of clarity on understanding regulation. Thank you for that. Best of luck to you in Fastex.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.